Hello everyone, my name is Jason, aka Bacon Chest, coach of the St Kilda Superiors. Welcome to ICBA D-League Season 2, Week 8 versus Matt O'Shea and the Montreal Milotics. This is going to be our final week for the ICBA, that is unless we make playoffs, although I think even if we win this game, having confirmed that it's only, I believe, top 4 teams going through to playoffs, we have a very slim chance, but we'd love to finish the season off on a high. We'd love to finish the season with a neutral 4-4 record. We've never gone negative in a completed season before, so I wouldn't like to start now. So let's look at this matchup. Yeah, Matt O'Shea and the Montreal Milotics. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I've just got back from a holiday. But yes, Matt has a very threatening roster consisting of Pheromosa, Mew, Tangrowth, Haxorus, Arcanine, Mamoswine, Klefki, Cofagrigus, Ditto, Gastrodon, and Galvantula, with Pheromosa, Mew, and Haxorus as the Z users. So this is a really cool team. I actually really like this team. Obviously, Pheromosa is a huge threat that we allowed. I guess like offensively it's incredibly powerful, but I guess like defensively it is reasonably easy to check. Obviously, its big niche being just an incredibly fast and super powerful U-turner, and then obviously its ability to just spam moves like high jump kick towards the end of a game, as well as the fact that it gets Ice Beam. I think the fact that it gets Ice Beam actually makes it like so powerful in this format, just because that's such good coverage to slap on against flying types and bulky grounds that might otherwise try to wall it, such as, for example, the Mons on my team that you can actually see on your screen. But what else does this team have going for it? The fact that this team has access to Spike Stack through Klefki, as well as Toxic Spikes through Cofagrigus, as well as Sticky Web through Galvantula, with access to a really good spin block in the form of Cofagrigus, is pretty cool. That's pretty clutch. It's also got a very bulky Firewater Grass Core with Tangrowth, Arcanine, Gastrodon, as well as access to like a modern like Mew Tangrowth is a disgustingly bulky core, and then really good offense in the form of like Mamoswine, Pheromosa, Haxorus. Like Haxorus, I just think is such an underrated dragon in the format, just because it does not have a 4x weakness, which most dragons do. And after a Dragon Dance, it's still outspeeding everything. 97 is not the best speed tier, but it's still good enough for all the bulky things. So that's pretty handy. The other thing I would say, is that this team like really threatens in terms of its setup. Particularly with access to webs, things like Mew and Haxorus can run Swords Dance instead of Dragon Dance potentially, which is terrifying. Like +2, Mew can also obviously run Nasty Plot, I believe. And so, both of those options are really threatening. But then things like Ditto and Klefki with Prankster T-Wave, and Ditto obviously with Prankster, with whatever its ability is called, are able to deal with opposing setup really well. What this team is maybe lacking a little bit is its bulk against certain types is a little bit limited, like specifically its resist. So the fact that Klefki is kind of the dragon switch in, the flying switch in, the normal switch in, and kind of really the ghost switch in as well, because like Mew is really the Psychic switch in, can't take Ghost attacks. Klefki's can take Psychic and can kind of take Ghost attacks. So yeah, it's a really pressured mod on my opponent's team. It's also not a mod I necessarily expect them to bring, given I have the options of both Garchomp and Heatran. And obviously, yeah, Camera Magnet Rise for Garchomp, but I can just bop it with a Fire Blast. I guess Magnet Rise Ockerberry could be a set, but the problem is it can't really do anything to Heatran, even if it is able to, aside from throw out a T-Wave, and it can't really do anything to Garchomp. Like Player Off and Dazzling Gleam will do damage, but like Garchomp's naturally bulky enough that it'll live it. So yeah, I don't really expect to see the Klefki, especially because its main niche here would be maybe, I guess, Spike Stacking, but if my opponent's gonna trying to throw up hazards in this game, even in the face of a Prankster defog from Tornadus, then I imagine it'll be Galvantula trying to throw up webs rather than Klefki trying to throw up spikes. So, yeah, I tried to build this team around trying to spam some attacks that my opponent wouldn't necessarily be able to deal with to try and clean up with a Scarfer late game. And the first mon actually on my team, you can see the Tornadus on your screen. I'm not going to talk about that yet. What we are actually going to talk about is this Drapion. This is going to be our dedicated lead in this matchup. I haven't put it in the first slot just to try and, like, hopefully play some mind games and put Deoxys there. I've been trying to do that for most of the season. Probably none of my opponents have cared. But I have been trying to put Deoxys in that first slot as much as possible when I'm not necessarily anticipating leading with it all that often, just to, you know, threaten that kind of spike stack set. But we are running a form of spikes this week in the form of Toxic Spikes on our Drapion. Toxic Spikes are incredible against my opponent's team. Mew, Tangrowth, Haxorus, Arcanine, Mamoswine, Cofagrigus, Gastrodon, all of these mons hate Toxic Spikes. Even Ditto as well, actually, because Ditto is so frail that, you know, it loses a lot of mirror matchups once I've got it poisoned. Just because it is going to take so much damage with that low HP stat. So, yeah, this thing's great. It gets up T-Spikes against my opponent's, pretty much my opponent's entire roster. The Sugarberry plus these defense EVs allow us to live an Adamant Life Orb Earthquake into an Adamant Life Orb Ice Shard, and our speed allows us to outspeed a Mamoswine, so obviously from a Mamoswine, and our speed allows us to outspeed a Jolly Mamoswine. So what that allows us to do is get off a Toxic Spike and an Aqua Tail against my opponent's team. Possibly it was actually EV to live. No, no, I think that's correct. So yeah, we get off the Toxic Spike before my opponent attacks, or does whatever they want to do, and then we get off the Aqua Tail. If my opponent likes to go for rocks, we actually are then able to two-hit KO with Aqua Tail before my opponent can kill me. Generally, I think, yeah, like, and I think if my opponent is like a banded Mamoswine, then Earthquake still isn't going to KO us. With the Sugarberry, we can't be crit because of our battle armor, so yeah, this thing is just the most reliable T-Spikes imaginable. Obviously, my opponent could try and run a fast taunt, but my opponent's obvious fast taunter would be Mew. I don't expect Mew to click taunt against a Drapion. I just don't see that happening. Crunch is here to hit the Mew a little bit harder after a Colbur because I could kind of see a Colbur Roost Mew trying to stall us out, in combination with, I could see a Colbur Mew trying to stall us out. I could also see something like a Colbur Cofagrigus trying to stall us out, so, yeah, I figured Crunch was not too bad there in terms of being able to do a bit more damage after we've gotten rid of a Colbur from one of those mons, potentially even with, I'm not sure if we have any other Dark moves on the rest of our team, so maybe that didn't make a lot of sense in the end with the team that we built, but it is there. Poison Jab just as good stab. Obviously you can potentially throw around more poison because, as we've already said, poison is really, really good against my opponent's team. We don't necessarily need 2 layers, probably just 1 layer will be sufficient, just to try and chip away at these mons and make it so they can't stay in long term and really wall out some of my bigger offensive threats. So yeah, this thing's just amazing. In this matchup, I just, like, love that I've been able to actually take advantage of the T-Spikes for once. Next up, we had Deoxys. This is our main way of breaking down either Cofagrigus or Mew, which I expect to see at least one of those. The reason for that is that they are the 2 mons that kind of stop Meloetta from sweeping through my opponent's team. Meloetta otherwise has a great matchup, with, obviously, as I've already said, like, Klefki being my opponent's main resist, and you can see that, like, we've got a couple of mons that kind of, you know, like, can really threaten Klefki, if my opponent does decide to bring it, which I don't think they will. Z Shadow Ball is to break down a really fat Mew or a really fat Cofag that's being a pain in the bum. And Psycho Boost just do a lot of damage to my opponent's team. KOs Pheromosa, does a lot to things like Arcanine and Tangrowth, can do a lot to something like Gastrodon, you know, potentially if Gastrodon's, like, weakened, and yeah, just generally good damage. Extreme Speed is to pick off a weakened, you know, Mamoswine or Haxorus, things like that, and Ice Beam is for the Haxorus, so this speed allows us to outspeed either a +1 Jolly Haxorus, which has tried to Dragon Dance on us, or a Swords Dance Haxorus, if Sticky Webs are up, because obviously that's the same speed tier, with us either being at -1 or him being at +1. Either way, we outspeed, and that's really, really nice because Haxorus is so scary. We do have another response to Haxorus, which we're about to get to, but this thing is kind of our offensive check to it. Ice Beam, I believe, KOs after like 1 round of poison damage. Or I'm trying to remember if we have Rocks on the team. I did play this game over a week ago, but yeah, generally it doesn't need much chip to be a guaranteed KO, even if the Haxorus is running a fair bit of bulk. So yeah, that's the Deoxys. Pretty simple set, but hopefully a really effective one. We then have, let's actually go to Tornado. We'll go to the Tornadus now. This is our Defogger. This is in case my opponent does bring Galvantula. If my opponent does bring Galvantula, we will probably lead with this thing, just because we do outspeed any kind of non-Scarf Galvantula. We can get off a Hurricane. If my opponent does elect to bring Scarf Galvantula, that doesn't really matter because they get up webs and then have to switch out, in which case I can defog. So that's not really an issue. Hurricane, really good against my opponent's team, obviously threatens things like the Tangrowth, even the Pheromosa, which with the Yachiberry we can live an Ice Beam, which is really nice. This is actually a very berry heavy team this week, just because my opponent has a lot of offensive threats that I can, that are fairly frail, like things like Pheromosa. Even Haxorus is, you know, whilst I did kind of extol its virtues earlier, is not the bulkiest thing in the world, and like Mamoswine, for example, is not as bulky as you'd kind of expect for, you know, a mammoth. But yeah, Hurricane does a lot. Heat Wave, obviously, for the Klefki. U-Turn for Momentum, and then, yeah, Pranks to Defog, just in case we see that Galvantula, although I don't necessarily expect it, just because something like Deoxys can fast taunt it, and we do have reasonably good removal. We then have a Garchomp. This has also got Yachi Berry, Earthquake, Fire Fang, Swords Dance, Stealth Rock. Again, taking advantage of the fact that my opponent doesn't necessarily have good switch-ins to a lot of, like, doesn't have good resists for a lot of types, which means, whilst, yeah, we can't necessarily, there's a lot of bulk on this team, but it's not necessarily bulk that resists a lot of types. So, we are able to get away with fairly flexible movesets, which is really nice. So, yeah, we've got Earthquake, and then Fire Fang, that hits my opponent's entire team. Because my opponent's ground resists are Pheromosa, obviously not really a ground resist, Tangrowth, and Klefki with Magnet Rise. All 3 of those get hit by the Fire Fang. So that's really good. Swords Dance, in case we can set up on something like a Gastrodon, or a Choice Lock to Galvantula, or potentially even a Choice Lock Pheromosa, or Tangrowth, or I guess Arcanine, and potentially allows us to blow past things like Arcanine or Cophagrogust, where their plan might be to try and Will-O-Wisp and then stall us out. Swords Dance allows us to break past those. Rocks, just in case we can get them up, can potentially be handy. The speed tier is for the Haxorus, I believe. There might be something else that's hitting. Oh, and Speed Ties the Mew. No, sorry. Yeah, Speed Ties the Mew. No, sorry. Goes above base 100. Yeah, so the speed is for a max Mew, max speed Timid Mew. That's really good because we can Swords Dance on the Mew's Ice Beam and then do a ton with Earthquake. The Yachiberry also allows us to live an Ice Beam from a Pheromosa pretty easily. Not pretty easily. Pheromosa is incredibly powerful, but presuming a physical Pheromosa, which is the set I expect because U-Turn is really, really good against my team, Yachiberry does allow us to live that, so that's really good. We then have Primarina. This is a Kebia Berry max defensive Primarina. This can live a Poison Jab from Pheromosa, it can live a Poison Jab from Haxorus, it can live a Gunk Shot from Mew. All of those are potential physical sweepers for my opponent's team. All of them can carry Z-moves. With the Kebia Berry, we can live most Z-moves from most of those mons. I think maybe Z Poison Jab from either Pheromosa or Haxorus. I can't remember which one definitely KOs us, even through the berry. But the main threat there was that Haxorus might want to run a Nerve over Mold Breaker. I was 50-50 on whether my opponent would want that, just because Mold Breaker is obviously really useful for my potential Rotom Frost, which I haven't bought all season, but it does have a reasonably good matchup here, given that obviously Blizzard can kind of blow back the Tangrowth and the Haxorus, and like Volt Switch is pretty good against pretty free against my opponent's team if I can get rid of Mamoswine, which obviously even like Mamoswine doesn't hugely love the matchup against Rotom Frost because I can click Will-O-Wisp. So yeah, it was 50-50. I kind of went for, well, if my opponent does bring Unnerve, this is still potentially useful for Mew or Pheromosa. So yeah, and the max defensive investment also meant that if my opponent like did happen to have Unnerve Haxorus or didn't bring the Haxorus, for example, then this could potentially also be a Mamoswine check. If something did go horribly wrong, I did kind of expect the Mamoswine lead. So Drapion was kind of going to be my way of putting damage on that, and then putting in range of pretty much my entire team at that point. But if something did go wrong, this Primarina can tank an Earthquake from a Mamoswine. I really love Primarina, just the fact that I can have 4 special attack investments, still hit almost 300 special attack, and have those really powerful dual stabs of Moonblast and Surf, really helpful. In this case, Toxic and Ice Beam are our chosen coverage moves, with Ice Beam hitting the Tangrowth and the Haxorus. I mean, it doesn't really, like, we hit the Haxorus with Moonblast. I think Ice Beam was mostly just for the Tangrowth, although if it was an Assault Vest set, we could then click Toxic on it. Toxic also obviously really useful for things like the Gastrodon and the Mew and the Kofag, so we can't get walled out by those things. So yeah, just a lot of ways of spreading poison. And then, finally, Long Team Builder. I mean, it is our last one for the season, so hopefully you're enjoying it. Is our Choice Scarf Meloetta. With this speed tier, we outspeed, question, what do we outspeed? I reckon that's probably a max speed, Pheromosa, would be my guess. There might be something there, that's also for something like an Adamant Haxorus, which I was kind of expecting, just because Dragonance Adamant was pretty powerful. So that might be what's happening there. I'd have to check, but can't really be bothered at this point of the time. It is like 10:45 PM when I'm recording this. But yeah, Psychic Hyper Voice, Energy Ball is there just so we, in case Gastrodon is an issue, because, or Mamoswine as well. Energy Ball, it does a lot more to Mamoswine than any other attack we could go for, aside from like something like a Focus Blast, but it did also give us an out against a bulky Gastrodon, like a Curse Gastrodon could have potentially been an issue, or like get Stockpile, I believe, so Stockpile Gastrodon could have been a potential problem, and yeah, this allowed us to break past that, and the Serene Grace means Energy Ball and Psychic are really nice, because they can potentially get those Spidef drops, you know, with like a 20% chance. That's pretty solid if my opponent is trying to stall me out with something like Gastrodon or something like Tangrowth, then the Psychic can potentially break those things down. But yeah, so I was really happy with this team. I thought it was like reasonably well built around trying to get Choice Scarf Meloetta to sweep in the late game, so let's see how it went. So, you can see that my opponent decides to bring the Mew, the Pheromosa, the Ditto, the Gastrodon, the Mamoswine, and the Arcanine. And so that's great news, because we do not see the Garvantula, so Operation Get Toxic Spikes Up is in full effect. You can also see that my opponent's entire team gets hit by Toxic Spikes. They have not brought Klefki. I mean, yeah, Klefki is actually my opponent's only immunity to Toxic Spikes, so yeah, they haven't brought their only immunity to Toxic Spikes in the form of Klefki, so that's really good. And you can see that Mew, because Klefki is also, the other thing that's great about Klefki not being there is that it means Mew is the removal, which means I'm expecting to see a bulky Mew, which means Toxic Spikes are even more useful in this matchup, and they just break down Gastrodon and Arcanine. The fact that Tangrowth's not there means, like, Tangrowth is probably the one Pokemon that doesn't really mind one layer of Toxic Spikes all that much, just because of the Regenerator. So, yeah, I'm reasonably happy with this matchup. We see that my opponent does lead with the Mamoswine. This is fine, I'm just getting up those T-Spikes straight away. As my opponent does elect to go straight for the Earthquake. Again, this is exactly what I expected. We see from that damage that I believe my opponent is a Jolly Mamoswine. And you can see that it's not a Life Orb, might be an Expert Belt, might be a Focus Sash, something like that. Either way, I'm just going to click Aqua Tail right here. We're able to get off good damage, and Drapion is going to go down. I'm not too fussed about that. We didn't see the Cofagrigus, so this Drapion's not that necessary as a Ghost Resist to potentially stall out Trick Room turns. And I do think that with the T-Spike up, I can handle the Mew reasonably well. So, yeah, not too worried about that. We bring out Meloetta, because this is now a free energy ball. My opponent potentially had a way of living Hyper Voice or a Psychic there, and it wasn't out of the realms of possibility that they could go into Gastrodon as their response, so I decided Energy Ball was the safest play there, and whether Arcanine or Mew came in, which were really the only other responses, because you're not going to bring in a Pheromosa on a Meloetta, that's great, because we get poison damage off on them. We do a relatively pitiful amount of damage with the Energy Ball. We do get the special defense drop, but obviously we're not going to stay in here because this thing is our win con, and my opponent does have Ditto and Ice Shard from Mamoswine to potentially get damage off on this thing late game. So we want to keep it as healthy as possible for that late game. Bring in the Garchomp, get Toxic. I'm not fussed about that. This is a pretty free Earthquake for me, as my opponent does decide to stay in. I imagine they potentially had a fast Arcanine with maybe HP Ice, or they were... Yeah, I don't know what else they were expecting. Or possibly it's also just the fact that my opponent doesn't have an Earthquake switch in. That may have actually been the thing, is that Arcanine, I guess, didn't have the best matchup, and... yeah, if that Arcanine did have HP Ice, I guess Garchomp would have taken a lot from that, and then that could have opened the door for something else, but yeah, Arcanine just disappears. We have got a fast offensive Garchomp, so that's really nice. We're down to 82% with the poison damage. As my opponent brings out the Pheromosa, we live an Ice Beam from here, so I'm just going to stay in and click the Fire Fang, because this Pheromosa is going to disappear unless he's like Specs or Life Orb, as they are not Specs or Life Orb. So yeah, you can see from that damage that a Life Orb Ice Beam would have killed from that range. But, you know, given how frail Pheromosa is, and given I have Extreme Speed on access to Extreme Speed through Deoxys, I didn't really expect a Life Orb set. I expected a reasonable amount of bulk to try and live that Extreme Speed. So yeah, we are able to take down the Pheromosa, so this is great. We managed to take down one of the big defensive monsters in the form of Arcanine that could potentially take a couple of hits from Meloetta, and particularly Flare Blitz into Extreme Speed could have taken me out, or at least put me in like such low range that I wouldn't be able to sweep through the rest of this team. So that was great to get rid of, and now getting rid of Pheromosa is amazing, because potentially that was a Scarfer that would outspeed Meloetta, and even if it wasn't, it was still a huge offensive threat that potentially could have Beast Boost swept through the rest of my team, particularly if it was a speed boosting set. Because obviously then it does outspeed all my Scarfers. So, we're able to take that thing down. The Mamoswine comes back out as I just go straight back out into Meloetta, because at this point of the game, Meloetta can start just cleaning up my opponent's team, pretty much. You know, like, my opponent hasn't really bought the things that could have stopped it, and with the Toxic Spike up, Mew and Gastrodon aren't long-term solutions. I really want those things toxic. I also want Ditto toxic, so I'm happy for that thing to get whittled as well. So my opponent brings out the Mamoswine, and it's a Lumberry Mamoswine as it turns out, so fair call. I do have a few things that could have maybe Will-O-Wisped or Toxicked that Mamo, so that's okay. But yeah, this is a free, I believe I could just go for Hyper Voice here. Yeah, because I didn't expect my opponent to... I think, oh, right, yeah, now that I confirmed that it's not an Assault Vest Mamoswine, which could have been a possibility, then I can just click Hyper Voice, and Hyper Voice will definitely kill, I think was the basic play there. But yeah, we're able to get a really good damage on the Ditto. That puts it in range of... So you can see it's not quite in range of another Hyper Voice right now, but as soon as it takes another round of poison damage, it will be. On the contrary, my opponent can't kill me with any attack right now, because obviously Hyper Voice will do significantly less damage to a Meloetta, because Meloetta has much higher base HP than Ditto. What's Meloetta's base HP? Meloetta's base HP is 100, so yeah, you can see that's obviously a lot better. So I guess probably we would have taken like 28 to 30%. I definitely did these calcs after the game because it was a very, very relevant calc. As you will see in a sec. But, yeah, so we will be able to kill this, we would have been able to kill this Ditto with the combination of a Hyper Voice into the poison damage. So my opponent makes a smart play and goes for a U-turn, wins the speed tie there, which my opponent argued after the game that that was a good win for me. I don't necessarily think so, because then the Ditto just dies to another round of poison damage and I can just sack something to it. Like if I win that speed tie, that Ditto is now at 8%. So I don't necessarily see that as a good win in terms of a speed tie for me. Obviously it would have meant that what happens now, where you see that Mew comes out, Mew wouldn't have taken this Hyper Voice and would have been at a healthy amount of HP, but I do have several ways of beating this Mew at this point of the game. Particularly Deoxys Speed. With a Poison Mew, there's no way Deoxys Speed can't beat this Mew 1v1. So yeah, as it stands, I am able to, I do decide to switch out because I'm not going to kill this Mew from here, and I didn't want it to try and stall me out. The Mew does go straight for an Earth Power. I'm not sure what moves this Mew is carrying. Might be some kind of lure Mew with like a weird moveset, and that's why it couldn't really hit Meloetta all that hard. Although I guess Mew doesn't have particularly good ways of hitting Meloetta. But anyway, I'm able to bring out Primarina. Primarina doesn't have a huge amount of function at this point. But what I am able to do is click Moonblast and see this Mew. Oh yeah. The aim here was I didn't want the Mew to click Shadow Ball. Although I guess it wasn't going to click Shadow Ball on Meloetta, but this way it definitely wasn't going to click Shadow Ball on a Primarina. And that gave me a very free switch into Deoxys, which meant that, and I expected the recovery here as well, but my opponent actually goes for the Earth Power and then dies to the poison damage. So yeah, it was basically my way of getting the Mew on an expected roost. That was actually what we wanted, was not what we weren't that worried about Shadow Ball, but what we were worried about was the Mew clicking roost, trying to stall us out. This way we were able to get Deoxys in for free, and that meant that Mew was going to go down, so that's really handy. With Mew gone, we're pretty good to sweep with Meloetta. Brings out the Gastrodon. I'm going to go out to Primarina here, because Primarina can get off good damage with Moonblast, and we can potentially keep Deoxys around to potentially kick Extreme Speed to beat up a weakened Ditto or a weakened Mamoswine, as well as potentially, if we can chip away at this Gastrodon, we can potentially beat it with a Z Shadow Ball. So, you can see my opponent clicks the Earth Power, doesn't show lefties, which makes me think this is definitely Rindo Berry. So I'm really happy I did decide to go Primarina to get off this damage, because what we're now able to do with this Moonblast damage is we put this Gastrodon down to 40%, which means I can just go out to Meloetta and click Energy Ball, and that's a guaranteed KO. Even through the Rindo Berry, no Gastrodon was living that. So, we're able to get rid of that, and this leaves it with Mamoswine plus Ditto. My opponent goes out into the Ditto, and basically, I've got a very slim chance of losing from here, but I should be okay. I can't kill with Hyper Voice from this range, and I don't want to take a Hyper Voice. Or at least I don't want to take, I want to give myself the best chance of not taking a Hyper Voice. So, we are actually going to switch out here, go into Tornadus, and then sack off our Tornadus here, which is fine. And now this thing is definitely in range of Hyper Voice. Yeah, so I think before, even after the poison damage, there was the potential. No, I don't think there was any potential for this thing to not be in range after the poison damage, so that didn't really make any difference in terms of. There may have been something there about maybe if my opponent clicked U-turn and won that speed tie, and then went out to Mamo, that could have potentially been an issue. Yeah, I'm not quite 100% sure what I was thinking there. But anyway, what I am able to do now is, no, so what this allowed me to do was click the Energy Ball. That was actually the crucial thing, because then we could guarantee 100% that we killed off this Mamoswine from 59, and we killed off the Ditto. Yeah, so that was it. Yeah, we were able to put the Ditto in range of the energy ball. We do win that speed tie. That didn't matter. Well, actually it does. So it shouldn't have mattered, because what my opponent I think wasn't calcing with the different HP stats, so was assuming that yeah, I'm not sure what my opponent was using to calc, unless they were like a Specs Ditto, in which case it wasn't a speed tie at all. But yeah, Scarf Ditto was only going to do I believe like 30% or something to me, and so yeah, we were going to be able to live that into an Ice Shard, although you do see my opponent does get a crit here, which means that there is a plausible world where that that speed tie did matter, where I don't know the exact calc off the top of my head, but potentially Hyper Voice could have done more than 29%. I imagine that's reasonably true, given I was doing around 40% with my Hyper Voices, 2 against the Ditto. But, you know, obviously that would have been reliant on luck. As it stands, we're able to withstand the crit anyway, pick up a 2-0 victory, and yeah, that felt pretty good. I felt like I prepped that game reasonably well. I felt like we were in control for most of it. I felt like T-Spikes were a really clutch bring. We did have Deoxys in the back, so, you know, potentially, even if my opponent had won that speed tie and then killed me off, yeah, I don't think Ice Shard would have killed me anyway. So I think at that point it didn't actually matter. I think all that, yeah, Deoxys at 57 was definitely not dying to an Ice Shard. So yeah, no, I don't think that hugely matters in the end. It would have changed differential, but we did have the capacity to beat the rest of my opponent's team, even with just the Deoxys. So yeah, in the end, GG to Matt O'Shea and the Montreal Milotics, and GG to the entire D-League. Good luck to those who are going to be in finals. I know Hat is going to be in finals. I hope Zamcro is. I think the Raikugas are in as well. I think our opponents from last week, Dell and the LA Ducklets, may be in, or possibly our opponents this week. Not 100% sure. I think there were about 6 teams sort of vying for the last couple of spots. It was going to depend on what happened with forfeits. I think actually our opponents from week 1, Rio, may have also been in with a chance. Yeah, there were a few teams in with a chance, but yeah, good luck to them. Hopefully we can crown a D-League champion relatively soon. I know Hat has been, like, you know, really thirsty for getting a D-League championship after doing really well across both seasons. I think he's only lost 1 game across like 15 games or like something like that. But yeah, cheers to Johnny GB and Nartheta for their work in running the league, and to Bill for the graphics, for the thumbnails that we've been using all season. And yeah, that's about it. It's been a really good season. Finished 4-4. You know, could have done better, could have done worse. I think given that I've been in 3 leagues for most of this season, I'm reasonably happy with how we went. Like, given that I have been doing reasonably well in my other leagues, I'm kind of happy to have at least done okay in this one. It has been really fun group of guys, for the most part. Like, not everyone's been fun. There have been some people who weren't around very much, and then a couple of people did drop partway through the season, so that was a bit unfortunate, but like, everyone I've interacted with has been really good. Been good fun to play, some really good videos, and some good content creators, so yeah, definitely go check out people like Zamcro. Really interesting guy, just really good voice, to be honest, to just try and listen to in terms of YouTubers. And yeah, that's probably enough rambling from me, so yeah, until next time, later.